welcome to episode 1 of Escape Artists, a new series where I will be interviewing incredibly talented people from across the creative industry who have either escaped from or completely bypassed the rat race. I'm your host, Marisha Pink, and although I'm now a full-time creative entrepreneur and fiction author, once upon a time I was in the rat race too. You can read more about my escape on my website, marishapink.com. But the real reason I've started Escape Artists is simple. As I've gone through my journey, I've met so many people, and they all tell me that they wish that they could do exactly what I have done. They hate the 9 to 5, they don't want to sit at a desk all day, and they long to fulfill their creative ambitions, whether that's writing a book or producing a play or making a film. And these same people that are so enthusiastic and so encouraging when I talk about my journey don't seem to feel that it's something that they could do for themselves. They very much perceive it as something that's a little bit out there. It's a little bit too risky and it's not worth giving up the comfort of the day job in order to pursue. Now I'll be honest, when I first started out, I was the only escapee that I knew. I often wondered whether I was completely crazy and whether I was making a huge mistake. But as time has gone on, I've met more and more people like me. And the best part about meeting those people is they share one thing in common. Not one of them regrets the decision to make the escape. And so that's really why I'm bringing Escape Artists to you. I'm hoping that if my guests from across the creative spectrum share their stories, you'll be inspired to pursue your creative ambitions and make that escape. Often I think some of the barriers are a lack of confidence in examples and a fear of what might happen, alongside maybe not knowing quite how to go about making that change. And so my guests are really here to offer you practical advice and an insight in what it's like to live life as a creative professional after you've made your escape. Escape Artists is going to be available every fortnight, and today my guest is the wonderfully talented London-based singer-songwriter Dilys. Dilys has supported Leo the Lion from the streets. She has wowed Kevin Spacey at the Old Vic Theatre's Celebrity Gala. And she has also got shows coming up across Europe and the USA where she's going to be sharing festival bills with the likes of Joss Stone and the Jacksons. She unofficially released her debut album, Find Me an Angel, last year, and she's been a very, very busy lady indeed. So it's a wonder that she had time to talk to me. But here's what happened when I caught up with Dilys. So, hi Dilys, and welcome to the first episode of Escape Artists. We're very excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
I'm obviously really familiar with your work.
Yeah.
I know you from university, but for people who haven't yet heard any of your music, you want to tell us a little bit what you're about?
Basically, I'm a singer-songwriter. I released an album last year. I just finished recording it last year and hoping to follow up with an EP this year. And we've been gigging around London, done a few shows across Europe, heading across to New York in a couple of weeks, and yeah, spreading the word, just getting the music out there.
All sounds incredibly exciting and very glamorous every time I speak to you.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always like that, was it?
No, not at all.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you became a singer-songwriter extraordinaire?
Okay, I followed the path that everyone I know did. We kind of went to university, then 90% of people did a law conversion course, and then went to the city. Then I worked at an emerging markets company, so we sold risk analysis to lots of Fortune 500 companies.
Is that as exciting as it sounds?
It's more exciting than anything you've ever done. It's crazy. But do you know what? It wasn't bad. I think at the time, I was kind of fresh out of university. I was like, oh, look at me putting on my suit and going to a real adult job. And I kind of enjoyed it for a bit. And then it kind of gets that Groundhog Day feeling.
Yeah,
and then,
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and you're just like, is this it? Is this what it's all been gearing up towards? And I just thought, no, I need to try something else. So I went travelling, and I kind of had loads of time to just think about what actually made me happy. Came back and started dabbling in music and trying to just see what I really wanted to do. And then ran out of money, went back to the city a couple of days a week and tried doing music at the same time. That was way too hectic. And then I just quit the city, full stop, and then just concentrated on music full time.
It's a pretty bold move, that.
Yeah, it was scary.
I'm hearing a very similar story to myself in terms of just running away from it all and using that time while you're away to figure out what you want to do. I mean, how long have you known that this might be something that you wanted to do?
I think ever since I was months old, I've loved music. And my dad's a really good singer, actually, and he's always been on that side of the family I get it from. But, like, it was something that was never done, like, never really discussed. It was a hobby for anyone. And, like, and even at school, my parents wouldn't even bother seeing, like, the music teacher. They wouldn't, like those parents' evenings, they wouldn't see the game teacher, even though, like, I trialed for England for so many sports, they still didn't think it was, like, a thing. But, like, the maths teacher, they'd go and see. The physics teacher, like, that's a real
the
thing.
important core subject.
Exactly. So it was just a bit fluffy to them. So I think I got to university, I was like, I did bits and pieces of, like, talent competitions and stuff. It's always been, like, in me to do. But I just think I wasn't brave enough to fulfill it at a really young age. So I think I needed to be where I was to be able to be confident enough.
Have a bit of life experience and kind of feel confident in yourself and your ability to pursue it.
Completely.
So, I mean, I love your music, and I'm not going to be the first person to describe you as, she sounds absolutely like Tracy Chapman, and it's just incredible. And from your original work to some of the covers that you've done, which are so unexpectedly brilliant. I listened to a cover that you did of Linkin Park song, which
I
is
love that song.
Not something it sounds a bit strange if you haven't listened to it, but it just works so well. For people who, perhaps, come into your music for the first time, how would you describe it in your own words? It's
kind of, I'd definitely say there's a mature element to it. Not kind of like, saga mature, but kind of like my lyrics are really precious to me. So I kind of write about things that have affected me, or I'll borrow from other people's stories, like my friends, my family. And it's kind of indie because there's guitars in there, but there's like a lot of soul. It's based in like soul, because I think like my voice suits soul music, but it's popular. So it's not like, I'm not snobby about pop music being like rubbish music. It's just accessible, basically. Okay.
And so, who, I guess you can't really liken yourself to anybody with something that's such an eclectic mix of different genres. How, which artists inspired you when you were starting out?
Yeah, I've never really gone from what's on the radio, what's going at the time. I think the best music comes from you just open your mouth and it comes out when someone's playing guitar. It's very like internal. So it's more childhood influences. Like my dad loves music, and he plays so much Lionel Richie, like in those long car journeys in the cassette player.
The good old cassette player. Yeah, whatever happened to it?
Completely. Kids these days don't know they're born. But he played like bits of country music. He loves Celine Dion. Like then my sister and I would sing to Whitney Houston. Then my brothers were like rock heads. They would love the Nirvana and like the Linkin Park stuff. And I think that's where I always used to sing it from.
Okay.
So it's literally just kind of absorbing everything, and it comes out into like you.
And are you the only one, would you say, that's kind of pursuing music as a profession out of your family, or do you think they've all got a little bit?
I think they all definitely have a little bit of like the creative in them. My biggest brother, who's a doctor over in Australia, he's kind of dabbling at the moment.
Okay.
Like, bless him. He's not the greatest, but he loves it. But like he's still doing medicine full time, so he kind of like, on weekends he'll play like his local place. He's taught himself guitar, and so I think we all have a little bit in
you. Yeah. Okay. So, you've got this fantastic talent, and you've decided you're going to make this change. How, in practical terms, how did you actually go about, what's the process of writing or producing your music look like for you?
It takes a long time. I didn't get to the point where I felt comfortable writing my own songs for years, because it is a skill. And the first songs you write, you'll look back and be like, that's a horrendous piece of work. Like, it's kind of like for you publishing the first poem you wrote when you were 11. Like, it's kind of like, at the time, that's lovely.
Great.
Yeah, but with actual like education and learning about like the process, it's not great. So just kind of looking around, kind of seeing what makes a good song, and seeing, like, learning from other people, hopefully working with lots of other people, you get to bounce off each other. And then once you feel strong enough that like the certain set mold to writing a good song, then you just write as much as you can, and then 4% of that will be worth doing something with.
Only 4%?
You should apparently throw away like one, you should keep 1 in 10 songs, apparently.
So, I mean, how many songs would you write in a day, a week, a month? How much?
It depends on what else because now in the old days when like you were a musician and you just made music, you could do it all day, every day, and then someone would pay your bills and someone would do everything else. So it's a case of us like, we'll write music on the tube on the way to work, or kind of just like at sound check in the time between your set, you'll be trying to get some lyrics down. So it's really fitting it in. And that's probably the difference between people that are like supported financially and they've got the time to just write and write and write, and then like there'll be a gem in there every couple of days. Or if you only write 2 songs a month, it'll take a year before you find that gem.
Okay.
So yeah, it's up to you how much. You should literally try and turn up to the page, even if you don't finish a song. Try and turn up to the page every single day and write bits and pieces and see what comes.
And so then if you're doing a bit of that each day, I mean, what does a typical day look like for you? Because you've been on this crazy schedule of, you know, doing gigs and supporting people on tour and doing festivals, not just in the UK, but, you know, all around Europe. You mentioned that you're going off to New York. Do you have a typical day?
That's the thing. Not really. But I'll try and get up and I'll try and like do some sort of exercise type thing, because we, you know, it's like you can be inside writing and working all day, so you just kind of like see civilization for a bit. And then a lot of the time I spend on my laptop, either looking for opportunities, contacting people, because nothing comes to you at all. You have to be like out there asking people to listen to stuff, because there is so much good music out there. You do need to just kind of knock on people's doors. And so that I'll spend like a good 2 hours or so in the morning, like replying to stuff that's coming in the evening, in the previous night. And then I'll do 2 hours of vocal practice in the day. And then I'll work on my own songs that I've already recorded. So kind of like fine tuning them, because you can always like do something more with the vocal performance. And then I'll write in the afternoon, or I'll go to a producer's studio and we'll like write together. So I'll try and do that a couple of times a week. I'll sit down I work with 3 producers at the moment.
Okay. And
write with them. And then always like kind of write down your own ideas to take to them as well, and then like bounce stuff back and forward. Then in the evening, if we have a gig, you have to normally get to sound check for like 6 or so. And then that's your evening. Or it could be like a couple of weeks ago when we had the whole band staying over here, and then we flew to Romania on the Thursday morning and got back on Saturday afternoon, and then I had a gig in the evening, so we like dropped our suitcases and then went to that.
Oh gosh, sounds crazy and manic.
Yeah, but it's like when you're busy, you feel like, right, I'm like progressing, I'm doing something. Then you have the times where you're like, hello, someone answer my email.
I think everybody probably feels a little bit like that, and I think you know, they're not, you know, when it rains it pours. It's a really typical thing to happen when you work in creative. Suddenly everything just snowballs. You know, you have, I mean, you've talked about your team that you've worked with. So you've got the band, and obviously you work with 3 producers. How did you meet them? How have you come to work with them?
Well, the first producer I met, I did vocals on a rapper's song, and then we went to the studio and they knew each other. And then me and the producer were like, oh, we should try and do some stuff together. He's like, oh, I like your voice. I was like, I like the stuff you produce. And that just started. Now we're really good friends. We've just always been, about 2-3 years now, been writing together. The guy that I wrote my album with, I did backing vocals for someone else, and he produced her album, and she sang with the Shapeshifters, and she got People's Choice Awards, so she did lots of good stuff. And we were just kind of sitting in the pub after on the gig saying, oh, we should like try and do some songs together. And now we get on really well. We've written like the whole album together. So it's really through kind of getting in, not like at a base level, but just kind of earning your stripes slightly, like working with other people and just kind of like networking in that sense. There's also websites that producers are looking for people to produce.
Okay.
So there are things like there's lots of Star Now and music jobs and things which are like LinkedIn for musicians.
Okay. Well, we'll put a link to those for anybody who's interested in kind of having a look at what opportunities might be around. Obviously you started from nothing really, and as you said, you've got to earn your stripes, and people within the industry, I guess, will start to hear of you as you start to work with more people. How did you go about getting the word out to the audience and to kind of develop a fan base?
This is what we're still working on every single day. But I think the old school method of getting in front of people, so I think like you can listen to music online and be like, oh wow, that's amazing. But if you go to it, everyone knows like someone you've seen at a festival you've never heard. You're like, oh, I remember it because you remember the experience.
Yeah.
And then the music was just a little bit of that. So I think getting in front of people and just kind of converting them to like your side, like to be a fan, I think that works really well. And like the most amount of people that will buy albums are people that have seen us live.
Okay.
I think there's that connection of singing in front of people. You've got to use the social media. Like there's no way around it. Like I think anyone in this day and age can still just perform live without having anything recorded online or anything. So yeah, I'm on Twitter every day. I'm on Facebook every day.
Do you, first of all, do you find that takes up a lot of your time? Because I know for me, I spend quite a lot of time on that aspect of things, and I'm not sure whether it's because I'm just a bit more comfortable there.
Yeah.
But I do find that you can, if you let it, that can kind of take over everything.
Definitely.
And I'm not sure. I mean, there is certainly reward in networking. Talking to people, particularly people that have found your work, is always really, really satisfying. But you know, is there a danger that you can kind of expend all your time there and it detracts from what you're actually doing?
Completely. And it's kind of like a safe thing to do. You feel like you're working really hard and you're kind of on social media. But like there are lots of more boring, more important things to be doing. So I think like if you're tweeting all the time, you've done your 140 characters, like, oh, I've done some promotion. It's like, yeah, but then everyone's doing it. And it's a very kind of fly-by-night type thing. Like by the time someone's feed refreshes, that's gone.
Yeah.
So you need to be doing more concrete things. But you still, I think if you can do it on the go, that type of thing, like it's just part of weaving it into your timetable.
And it was, in fact, a very cheeky little tweet that you sent that landed you a gig. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm always stalking people generally online. And I realised that Leo, the lead singer from The Streets, he had a gig coming up at the O2 Academy in Islington. And I was just like, oh, it'd be really good to like support him, and I've always loved his stuff. And I was like, oh, hello, do you fancy a Dillis Shape support artist for your gig? And he listened to stuff and he was like, well, I don't see why not.
Fabulous.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you said yes. And then like he sent me, I'd send stuff with management, his people, all that type of thing. Yeah. And then, they just said yeah. And it was just the craziest thing. But he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Yeah. And no big head or anything. You've just organised everything with us, and it was a great night. It was really fun. There was a great after party, and it was nice for the band to do like something slightly higher profile than like the Dog and Spoon at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday.
We don't knock the Dog and Spoon or whatever it may be. There's going to be one of those venues that when you're plastered all over the telly, they come back. She was here first before she made it there.
That's what we're hoping for.
Speaking of kind of blowing up and telly and those things. You've taken the route that you've taken. It's been quite independent. You don't have any representation at the moment.
No.
Is that something that you are hoping to get? Do you want to carry on going it alone?
Yeah, no, ideally I would love someone to do all of the kind of non-music stuff. Okay. And for me to just write and record and sing and perform every day. But like, I don't know if it's because I'm quite a nerd, but I do like being in charge of my own kind of all the gigs and stuff. I send the band Excel spreadsheets are all colour coded, and they're like, you need to
fan of spreadsheets.
Yeah,
I get
exactly. Like I have you can't see this, like nice wall chart there with stickers of stuff that I need to be doing. So I'm not adverse to it. I'm not one of the people that really hates the whole like emailing people, because like in the city that's what we did every day. We were on the phone emailing, meeting people. So it's not that different, but just number of hours in the day, I could make so much more music if I had someone to handle that. So management is really hard to find nowadays. Like that will not come until you've shown that you're a really lucrative product.
Okay.
So for them, which is it's an investment at the end of the day, but like nowadays there's not as much cash flowing around that they used to have. So you have to work that a little bit harder before you get to the step where management come in.
And what are your certainly from a consumer perspective, we see these television programs, so The Voice and X Factor. There's a great already. X Factor, The Voice. People are going on. Britain's Got Talent, because there's probably less musical talent there. There's a few less people to compete with. Have you ever thought about going down that route? What are your thoughts about that as a way to get into the industry?
Like if I had £1 for every time someone said like, oh, you should go on X Factor, like we'd be doing this interview on a yacht or something. Like
keep asking. Exactly. I'd like to do my interviews on a yacht.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. But it's not real life. Like people forget it's a reality TV program. It's like me going to a lawyer, like, oh, you should be on Ally McBeal. Like, well, you know that's not a real thing, but like people just see TV and take it as read. But like, it's great entertainment. Like when it first started, we all loved it, but it's not for real musicians, I don't think. There have been a few that have done very, very well. I won't knock that, but it's just so manipulated. And my boyfriend actually knows a sound engineer from X Factor, and he can detune people when it's their week to go out because it's pre-planned, and he can tune people up when they're meant to stay.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. And also, the management companies that all these people that get knocked out go to, obviously they need to plan. They know who they're getting 3 weeks before the live show.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
All a bit suspect.
It's a very well-oiled machine. So, yeah, it's just, if you want to go down that road, that's fine. But it's also, you have to sign away your life, basically. And they can do with you what they will.
It's a commercial entity.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
Much.
And like, who do you actually remember from them? Apart from like the One Directions and people, there are a lot of people that's like
fade into obscurity. I mean, there's actually been a little bit of a trend where it's the people that win are the ones that get forgotten.
Yeah.
It's always the runners-up that have done quite well. So,
Exactly.
people remember, the JLSs didn't win, One Direction didn't win.
Yeah. Don't know if Ollie Murs won, but he's still kicking about.
No, I don't think he did win.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
It's not... I guess for some people it might be a platform, even if you don't get there. But I guess it's not a hard and fast, guaranteed route.
Completely. I saw as we do wedding functions and things now, just trying to make some more money. And I think Steve something that won like 7 years ago,
whose name you can clearly remember.
Yeah, exactly. But he was playing for like £70 a night in Essex. I was like, but you had a #1 single, and now you're back to like, I don't know, there's no aftercare, it seems, after winning. It's just, chew you up and spit you out type thing.
I think a lot of, of the areas of the creative industry are like that. It's very cutthroat.
It really is.
People's memories are quite short. They're always looking for the next biggest, better thing. And probably no more is that apparent than in music. What do you think about some of the other kind of ways of getting your music out? So your album, Find Me an Angel, it's currently available
on the website and on Facebook. You can buy it from a little store on there. And I'm hoping to release it properly, kind of with like an iTunes. Well, basically iTunes is like where everything goes. But at the moment where people only search for me once they've heard me, I didn't see the point of going through a large distributor who will take quite a high percentage of that, when if you're searching for me, you'll come to the website and just buy it off there. So I kind of think when I'm still trying to like plough money back into myself, I need to maximise that revenue as much as possible. And I don't know, I think there's an authenticity to buying things face to face after a gig, because when lots of people kind of be like, I want to take a little bit of this evening home. But so that's probably I find the best way is actually going out and performing in front of people. But getting your music out there otherwise, you've got your SoundClouds and you've got your Facebook band page player. There's so many of them. I'd say have like 1 or 2 maximum. Like, there's no need to dilute all of your listens and plays over like 19 platforms. And then, at the end of the day, you do need to get it on iTunes, because people like what people like. When people say, oh, I like some new music, they go on to the iStore. So you need to be where people search for music. But I think at the beginning, I'm fine with being kind of more like, oh, it's exclusive for people that have come to find it, and then hopefully do a launch after the festival season, after hopefully a few more people have like seen us and heard us. In iTunes.
And those kind of platforms now, when they started with big name stars, and they talked to the big record labels and got all the big artists on there, because that's how they build up their user base. How easy is that process for you as an independent artist to get your material onto those platforms? That's
one thing that the internet is good for. Like, absolutely anyone can release absolutely anything on iTunes. Like, there's no gatekeeper. And that also means there's no quality control. So you can record anything and just put it on and sell it for like 99 cents or something. So there's lots of different distributors you can go through in this country. I think there's CD Baby is the one that I use, and there's lots of, I can feel free to give you all the names of the ones you can use. And then they go through to iTunes, then automatically they can be on Amazon and Spotify and that type of thing. So they're all affiliated with each other. to my knowledge, you can't go straight to Spotify without having a distributor.
Okay.
But that distributor doesn't have to distribute to iTunes. So
it sounds quite similar to the publishing model in terms of, now I have one distributor that sends to Kobo and iBooks and all of those things for me. And we recently, that same distributor's opened up to Scribed and Oyster and a few other subscription-based things. And you mentioned Spotify. In terms of how you're rewarded, I guess, for having your material on there. You talked about selling direct and keeping as much as you can for yourself. How do you feel about subscription models like Spotify?
I think it's one of those things, if people actually listen to it and then buy a concert ticket which costs like £25, then it's a worthwhile investment. But I think nowadays people just listen to it like kind of in the background, and it doesn't convert to anything for the artist, and you're not paid anything for Spotify. I know they can quote you're paid like 0.00 something, like, but by the time you get that check, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's tough now because people don't buy music and they don't pay for music anymore. So it's very hard to sustain yourself if your end product is really devalued to like 0.0001p, even though the cost of producing that is thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of streaming services, but I know that's
the way it's going.
Exactly.
Just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. There's nothing. You're not going to convince people to stop. So.
Yeah. I think so. For you, would you say we've touched a little bit on it, and I think anybody who does do something similar to what you and I do will have that serious chat with themselves at some point about the poverty factor.
Yeah. No, it's
and
true.
about really how do you sustain yourself while you're growing a fan base and trying to get a decent income out of it. Do you think that so we've talked about actually sales of your music, but in terms of gigs, which you do a phenomenal amount of, is that where you find most of your revenue comes from? Would you encourage people to really kind of, aside from the visibility of it and the growing of a fan base, encourage them to do that as a way of keeping the penny jar topped up?
Exactly. Well, I will say in London, to play your original music, you will not get paid. You do not get a penny for this unless you get a very odd, we do odd gigs where it'll be outside of London and we'll do some covers mixed in with it, and it'll be kind of like an evening of music. To play your own music in London in the standard scene, it's got to the point where you won't get paid. Even if you bring people that pay to come in, you won't get paid any money at all. There's a monopoly of promoters at the moment, which like every artist has their little flare up about, So, and I think that's one thing that does grind people down. Like, do not expect to make money from your music. I'd say like maybe 5-6 years after you've started it.
Which is a really long time.
A really long time. So you need to get in with other disposable income, because even like rehearsal rooms you need to pay for when you've got the whole band, and like producing the CDs and all the processes. They cost a lot of money. So I was lucky that when I worked in City, I banked like a lot of my money, and I lived with my parents for a while, so I could come into it with some capital, because it is a business at the end of the day. You can't just start a business on nothing and be like, I hope everyone hands me stuff.
Well, we can hope.
Yeah, exactly. So you really do need to have, and I just do other normal jobs for money, lots of promotional stuff that fits around gigs and like having to be away for a couple of days, and so it's a real juggling act.
Okay, but you seem to be managing it, which is the really exciting thing. So, if we now think of a little bit about people who might be watching, who or listening, who want to follow in your footsteps, as it were, what sort of advice would you give them?
Definitely don't like quit what you're doing just yet. Like, you should do as much research as you can on the field you're trying to get into. Like, I only know about music, so kind of spending all your free time looking into what you'll need to do, what you want to do. Like, of course, get into some sort of training thing. Like, when I went to City, I went to music school on the weekends, and then I went to lots of different music schools to kind of see who was around, then making those contacts. And so you have something to jump off, and then quit what you're doing only when you don't have time to do what you love as much. So kind of when you...
There's a tipping point.
Yeah, always. Exactly. When you think you've got enough to grip onto, that like your work is getting in the way, then you can stop. But if you're kind of umming and ahhing about, this evening I don't really want to do music tonight, like imagine that being your life.
Yeah.
So you have to really, really want to do it with all your heart all the time. And if you don't, then that's fine. That's just your proxy of how much you want to do it. It's the things you'll give up as well as the things that you'll do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, think long and hard, but then go for it if it's all you can think about.
Okay, so what is the worst part then of what you now do?
The hardest part's probably not getting paid for doing gigs, only in London and stuff. And I think the low points are, it's more like trying to support yourself and fit everything in, I'd say. It's as I mentioned, it's a real juggling act, and trying to find musicians that will back you like out of faith, or because you don't actually have the cash to pay anyone. Playing to empty rooms. There'll be times when like you're pouring your heart out to no one. There are a lot of the lows, but they're counteracted by like incredible highs that you couldn't even like imagine a lot of the time.
And so what for you then has been the best moment of your career so far?
There've been a few. Like I think like having the album that I actually wrote like physically in my hand, I think was an amazing thing. When we came off BBC Radio, that was incredible because like obviously it was like the first time on radio. Also we did some live TV for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and that was like being in an actual studio and like the presenters turn to you and there's like 17 cameras.
Not at all like this amateur setup. I've got going here.
It's very similar. But that was really nerve-wracking but amazing. And then you'll come out of these places and be like, okay, like it's Thursday evening or like Wednesday morning, and like look what I've done with my day, and I can tell you exactly what I would have been doing like 4 years ago, like at my computer. Like it's just, it's a whole nother world. And like playing festivals and like playing to like people that love your music, and people come up to you, or like you get like bits of fan mail like, oh, like I really loved your song, this and that, because like it reminds me of like my dad that passed, or this and that. Like it's just, I know the connection is just amazing.
Really rewarding.
Yeah, like an actual like creating something as well. I think when I worked in City, I was an interface between client and corporation, and then like every day I'd get up and like they would be happy and they would be happy, and I was doing the same thing. But now like I make something, like I do something. There's kind of like, if it all ends, like there's proof that I was here. If that makes sense.
No, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So it makes it all worthwhile. All those low points when you have those little moments.
Definitely. And every day, like, and I love the creative process. I love the performing. If you can love as many of the stages as possible, then like everything else is just what allows you to do those bits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your album, Find Me an Angel.
Yes.
Where can people find it?
They can find their angel on dillismusic.com. They can buy it off there, or there's a store on facebook.com/dillis.music. Or they can just tweet me for a link at Dillis Music on Twitter. So yeah, there's lots of places they can find it, and then they can sign up to newspapers for some free music stuff that I give out, and festival tickets, and just updates and bit
lots of
chit-chat.
exciting swag and news.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like keeping people abreast of what's going on and where they can find us playing live and stuff. So yeah, we're out there.
Fabulous. All right, well, thank you very much for appearing on Escape Artists today.
Oh,
it's been
thanks for coming round.
Pleasure talking to you. This was the very first episode of Escape Artists with me, Marisha Pink, and we were joined by singer-songwriter Dillis. You can find her online, and you can find out more about Escape Artists on my website, marishapink.com. Escape Artists is going to be out once a fortnight, and next episode I'm going to be joined by award-winning documentary film producer Laura Shakam. As a special treat for you, if you sign up to the newsletter this week, I've got 10 copies of Dillis' first single, Lost Boy, for any newbies to the newsletter, so make sure you sign up, and you'll also then get notified when the next episode is out. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and for any further info you can head over, as I said, to my website marishapink.com, or you can find me on Twitter at marishapink. Until next time.